Imagine you've just been promoted to CEO of a major company.
Right.
You've got the corner office, you have the luxury cars, maybe a massive compensation package, and like a small army of sycophants hanging on to your every single word.
Right, yeah. The absolute dream for most people.
Exactly. Society points at you and basically says, you've won the game. You know, you have achieved the ultimate level up.
You're at the top of the food chain.
Yeah. But according to this radical spiritual text we're looking at today, you actually haven't leveled up at all. In fact, within this very specific framework, you're just a fly landing on a pile of dung.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it is a profoundly jarring perspective shift, I mean, especially for us. We are so deeply conditioned from childhood to measure our progress by, what we can accumulate. Titles, wealth, social influence. We basically treat life like a video game where those are the points you're trying to score.
It's all about the scoreboard. And today on the Deep Dive, we are exploring a philosophy that completely, I mean entirely, dismantles that scoreboard. We're looking at a document by an author named Su Feng. This was published on December 1st, 2024, and it's titled True Reversal, The Path to Transcending Life Levels.
Right. And the focus is, I was just going to say, the focus is entirely different from what we usually see.
Yeah, totally. And the mission for you, the listener, is to explore a radically different spiritual definition of what it actually means to level up. We're stepping completely outside the usual, financial hacking or career advancement guides. We're talking about a literal metaphysical blueprint for human existence.
And I think it's important to note that the author pulls absolutely no punches in laying out this blueprint.
Oh, none at all.
The language used to critique modern society is really uncompromising. Like words like demonic and garbage society appear right alongside these serene philosophical teachings. It creates this very stark contrast.
It really does.
Yeah.
And to be clear right up front, our goal today is not to endorse these views, right? We're not suggesting you immediately abandon your 401k and move to a cabin in the woods.
Though some days that sounds nice.
Right. But no, we are here to impartially unpack this really fascinating perspective. Because whether you agree with the premise or not, it acts as this highly intense mirror. It allows you to examine what you fundamentally consider to be actual growth. So, okay, let's unpack this. The text actually doesn't start with how to ascend.
No, it doesn't.
It spends a significant amount of time aggressively attacking what we currently think ascension is.
Yeah, the author vehemently argues against the modern internet trends and cultural narratives that, we consume daily. So think about time travel dramas where a character goes back in time just to get rich.
Oh, yeah, those are huge right now.
Right, or stories romanticizing marrying a billionaire, or guides on acquiring, elite thinking. The text categorizes these not as harmless entertainment, but literally as demonic teachings.
Which is such an intense phrase. That word demonic, it sounds like something out of a horror movie.
Yeah.
But reading through the text, it seems like the author means something far more systemic, right?
Exactly.
It's about doctrines that are fundamentally designed to corrupt the human mind by tethering it to these lower realms of existence. So it's not about monsters hiding under the bed. It's about distraction.
Precisely. The logic is that these teachings reinforce this illusion that changing your physical circumstances, so getting more money or power, is the ultimate key to happiness.
Right.
And if a society measures human value purely by that metric of wealth and authority, well, Su Feng views it as a garbage society.
A garbage society, wow.
Yeah, a system that operates entirely on vulgar flattery, petty competition, and spiritual degradation. Basically, everyone is just stepping on each other to get a slightly better view of the garbage.
That is such a vivid picture.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the analogies used in the text to describe this illusion are incredibly striking. I mean, we mentioned the fly landing on dung earlier, which implies this momentary, ultimately worthless gain.
Yeah.
But there's another comparison to a balloon swelling only to burst, which really highlights the sheer impermanence of material wealth. But the one that really sticks, the one that I think makes you pause, is the pig analogy.
Oh, the pig analogy is fantastic. So the text says a skinny pig growing fat remains a pig,
Right.
and a lazy pig rising to a position of authority among other pigs represents no true transcendence whatsoever. You are just the bossy pig now.
You're just a bossy pig. I love that. I mean, it completely strips away all the glamour we attach to status.
It really does. The nature of your existence hasn't shifted an inch. You've just acquired more resources within the exact same realm of existence.
So if becoming a wealthy or powerful person just makes you a fat pig or a bossy pig in the author's eyes, what actually breaks a person out of this cycle? Because if material success is just a horizontal movement, right, just shuffling around on the same level, it seems like the only way out is straight up.
That is exactly the shift in thinking required here.
So what actually constitutes a true reversal of someone's life level in this text? I mean, we're talking about life with a capital L-I-F-E.
Right, so true reversal is defined as the literal elevation of one's life level to a higher spiritual or existential state.
Okay.
The author uses the example of a fox transforming into a human, or a pig evolving into a human.
Like actual transcendence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those represent genuine transcendence because they're moving from one distinct category of being to a completely higher one. So for a human, the ultimate form of reversal occurs when that person ascends to become a celestial being or a Buddha.
Wow.
It's a literal transition from the mortal physical world into heaven. What's fascinating here is precisely that special metaphor.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
Well, the text describes becoming rich or getting an official promotion as running in circles, trapped in a ghostly maze.
A ghostly maze.
Yeah. It's the perfect way to visualize the human condition under modern culture. You might run to a fancier corner of the maze, right? A corner with better lighting, maybe a mahogany desk, a better zip code.
Yeah.
But you are still trapped inside the exact same structure. It's entirely horizontal movement. True reversal is purely vertical.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because it completely changes the geometry of how we view our careers.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, society tells you that moving from the mailroom to the boardroom is a massive vertical climb. We literally call it the corporate ladder, right?
We do.
But this text looks at that exact same career trajectory and labels it entirely lateral. You're just running sideways.
Yeah.
You are still subject to the same ego-driven anxieties, the same suffering, the same spiritual stagnation, and ultimately eventual death. You've merely changed your wardrobe.
Yeah, you're wearing a nicer suit in the maze.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So true reversal is ascending out of the maze entirely, but, leaving a maze usually requires a map. So if the goal is to stop running in the ghostly maze and achieve this vertical spiritual ascension, what is a practical roadmap? Like, how does a person actually do this?
Right. Is it just theory or is there a plan?
Yeah, does Weifeng provide an actual blueprint for this vertical climb?
There is actually a very specific, actionable blueprint. The text outlines a set of 8 principles that, if you follow them, guarantee true reversal. But I have to warn you, these require a radical dismantling of how modern humans operate.
I bet. Where does it start?
The foundation of this blueprint starts internally. It's an absolute reset of our core desires. The first requirement is to keep the heart simple and pure.
Simple and pure.
Yeah. The author states this internal purity is infinitely more valuable than any massive amount of material wealth. You have to keep your mind focused strictly on truth, goodness, beauty, love, faith, and sincerity.
That sounds beautiful, but also incredibly difficult.
Oh, it is, because you must explicitly avoid focusing on money, power, or empty fame.
Which instantly disqualifies the entire hustle mindset, doesn't it? I mean, you literally cannot harbor a pure heart focused on goodness if your underlying cognitive process is like constantly strategizing about how to crush your competition at work.
Right, or how to maximize your profit margins at the direct expense of others.
Yeah. The internal machinery of ambition just has to be completely gutted and rebuilt. So once that internal reset happens, what's next?
Well, the text then addresses where we should be getting our mental maps from. And it's highly specific about the sources of truth. It instructs the reader to listen exclusively to the teachings of Christ Jesus, Buddha Shakyamuni, Immortal Laozi, and the primordial chaos. And you're supposed to reject all other teachings.
That's a very specific lineup.
It is. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Shu Weifeng is essentially synthesizing the core figures of major world spiritual traditions, so Christianity, Buddhism, and Taoism, into a singular, unified source of truth.
Interesting.
The underlying functional argument is that these specific figures share one crucial trait, right? They actively rejected worldly power to achieve vertical ascension. Jesus rejected the kingdoms of the world, Buddha walked away from his royal palace, and Laozi abandoned society.
So the author's basically saying these are the guys who escaped the maze.
Exactly. Everyone else selling you a strategy guide or a masterclass is just selling you a slightly better map of the horizontal maze.
Okay, that makes sense. But there's also that mention of listening to the primordial chaos. And I feel like for anyone hearing that phrase for the first time, it might sound like a science fiction concept, like a Marvel movie villain.
Right, yeah.
But in the context of Eastern philosophy, it essentially refers to the raw, unformed potential of the universe,
Yeah.
right? Like before humanity started imposing all these rules and hierarchies and borders on everything.
That's exactly right.
So listening to the primordial chaos means tuning into the fundamental, uncorrupted state of existence rather than the noise of societal expectations.
And tuning into that uncorrupted state leads directly to the third principle, which is honestly one of the most paradoxical instructions in the entire text. It tells the reader to walk toward the paradox of having nothing yet possessing everything.
Having nothing yet possessing everything. I mean, it sounds like a riddle.
Yeah.
How does having nothing functionally equate to possessing everything?
It really comes down to the psychological mechanics of attachment. When you cling to things, so your bank account, your social status, your investments, even like your own carefully curated identity, your universe shrinks to the exact size of those objects.
Oh, that's a powerful way to put it.
You're limited by the constant low-level anxiety of losing them. You only truly possess what you can physically or legally hold on to.
So your identity becomes entirely tied to your inventory.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. But when you relinquish that attachment and genuinely need nothing, you're suddenly free to experience the entirety of existence. You possess everything because your state of being is no longer contingent on defending a tiny, fragile sliver of the world.
Wow. And I imagine that internal detachment dictates how you take external action in society, right?
It definitely does, which leads to the fourth principle. The blueprint demands that a person be maximally selfless, egoless, unattached, and without complaint.
Without complaint. That's the one that gets me.
Dropping complaints is perhaps the clearest daily indicator of an egoless state. Think about it. Complaining is the ego's primary mechanism for resisting reality. It's the self declaring out loud that the universe is failing to cater to its specific arbitrary desires.
Right. Like, why is there traffic? The universe knows I'm in a hurry.
Exactly. To eliminate complaints is to basically stop demanding that you be the center of the universe.
Which translates directly into the fifth principle, how we're supposed to interact with others. The instruction is to dedicate yourself to others and to society to the best of your ability, but without calculating personal gain. No keeping score.
No scorekeeping at all.
I want to bring in a modern analogy here because this is so counter to our current culture. Think about the concept of professional networking,
Oh boy.
right? We are actively taught to build relationships based on a calculated return on investment. You interact with someone on LinkedIn so the algorithm favors you. Or you buy a coffee for a senior manager, secretly hoping it leads to a promotion or a mentorship.
Which is a purely transactional way to view human connection.
Exactly.
The moment you calculate a return on your investment, you've stepped right back into the ghostly maze. You are using another human being as a horizontal stepping stone. Ascension requires giving simply because it is the nature of a higher spiritual being to give. The act of selflessness itself is the endpoint, not a currency to buy a future reward.
And this brings us to the sixth principle, a part of the blueprint that feels incredibly dangerous to apply in the real world. The text insists that in your relationships with others, there can be no mind games, no schemes, and no traps.
Right.
Furthermore, it explicitly states, and I'm quoting here, even if you are deceived, you must maintain your own openness and purity.
The vulnerability demanded there is just profound.
It feels like walking into a corporate battlefield without any armor.
Yeah.
I mean, if you refuse to play the game and you refuse to protect yourself from being scammed or manipulated, society tells us you're going to get eaten alive. You'll lose your job, your savings, your leverage. How does this philosophy justify asking someone to take on that level of exposure? Like, how do you survive that?
Well, it does it by completely reframing what is actually at risk.
Okay.
If your goal is to win the game of wealth and influence, then yes, playing without armor is a terrible, naive strategy. But the author is asking you to change your objective entirely. Think about it. What are the deceivers actually taking from you? Money, status, leverage.
Which the text has already established are meaningless illusions.
Right. So losing them doesn't impact your actual life level at all, not in the slightest. The only asset that holds true vertical value in this framework is the purity of your soul.
Oh, I see.
If someone deceives you, that reflects their spiritual degradation and their deeper entanglement in the maze. If you respond by becoming cynical, guarded, and scheming yourself, you've allowed their actions to degrade your spiritual state. You've let them drag you down into the mud with them.
So maintaining purity in the face of deception is actually presented as an act of supreme spiritual strength. Your purity is the only actual asset you have. Defending your illusory money by compromising your real purity means you have lost the only thing of value.
That is the core mechanism, yeah. It's declaring that your state of being is absolute, not conditional on how poorly other people treat you.
I mean, that makes perfect logical sense within the framework, but the physical anxiety of actually living that way, of just letting the world potentially take advantage of you, seems overwhelming for an average person.
It is overwhelming, which is why the blueprint provides a specific mechanism to handle that exact anxiety in the seventh principle. It instructs the individual to entrust their life to God and hand over the management of their life to the Tao.
Let's break down that concept for the listener. The Tao translates roughly to the way. Think of it as the underlying operating system or like the base code of the universe.
Exact.
Instead of trying to manually code your own life software through endless scheming, late-night worrying, and micromanaging every single outcome, you are trusting the base code of reality to run things efficiently.
Yeah, because the anxiety we feel, the need to hoard resources, to constantly climb the ladder, to outsmart our peers, it all stems from the arrogant belief that we are entirely responsible for forcing the universe to yield to our survival. Handing over management means resigning as the general manager of your own destiny.
Resigning as general manager, I love that.
You trust that the natural flow of existence will carry you exactly where you need to be for your spiritual evolution, even if that place doesn't look like traditional success.
So if you're no longer managing the outcomes and you aren't fighting for your spot in the maze, what are you actually supposed to be doing with your days? Which brings us to the eighth and final principle.
Yes. The final instruction of the text answers that perfectly. It just says, what you need to do is keep yourself happy and joyful every day.
It sounds deceptively simple after all these heavy metaphysical concepts.
Yeah.
Like just be happy. But looking at the mechanics of the blueprint, joy seems to be the necessary byproduct of achieving the other steps.
Yes.
Well, you physically cannot be joyful if you are deeply resentful about a coworker, right? You cannot be joyful if your mind is tangled in a web of schemes, or if you're terrified of losing your social status.
That is a great point. Joy acts as the ultimate diagnostic tool in this philosophy. If you are deeply, consistently joyful, it proves you've stopped fighting reality. You've stopped calculating your worth based on the maze's scoreboard. You have successfully surrendered your ego and handed over management to the Tao.
So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive looking at the modern obsession with hustle culture, securing the promotion, padding the bank account, trying to be the most important person in the room. And for you listening, I know you might just be trying to get through a really stressful quarter at work right now.
Yeah, you probably aren't planning on literally ascending into a celestial being this afternoon.
Right. The reality is, most people aren't ready to abandon the physical world. But even taking this text as a philosophical mirror, rather than a literal step-by-step manual, it offers an incredibly powerful lens. It forces us to pause the treadmill and ask whether our exhausting daily grind is truly elevating us, or if we're just fighting for a slightly more comfortable corner in the ghostly maze. Are we experiencing genuine growth as human beings, or are we just the skinny pig trying to get fat?
Answering that question requires a level of brutal honesty that, frankly, most of us actively avoid. It demands we look at the metrics we use to measure our self-worth and really question who designed those metrics and what the system gains from our endless participation in the game. It completely dismantles what modern society considers valuable.
Absolutely. But before we wrap up, I want to pose something that builds on this entire framework, something we haven't really touched on yet. If true reversal requires shedding all earthly ambition, all calculation of personal gain, and all ego, what happens to human progress? Like if all the greatest minds, the builders, the scientists, and the innovators woke up tomorrow and decided to stop striving, stop competing, and just focus purely on joy and handing management over to the Tao, would our technological and societal structures simply collapse?
That is a fascinating question.
Or, free from the ego, the resource hoarding, and the endless scheming, would we finally build a world that isn't a garbage society? It is something to chew on the next time you find yourself stressing over the corporate ladder.
And honestly, if you genuinely start protecting your ego tomorrow, gave up all calculations of personal gain, and allowed yourself to be completely open and vulnerable to the world, even at the risk of being deceived, would you feel like you had nothing? Or would you suddenly discover what it means to possess everything?